So last week we covered up to word off left, and we were looking at like the normal form, like the standard kind of pattern, and then also mirror form. So you've got the mirror version, and also looking at sort of individual frames of the movement. So like the standing positions in word off left. You can break it down into quite a lot of detail with that. So we'll continue with that tonight, and also maybe looking at the hands on their own, then kind of stepping exercises, freestyle, and any other little quirks to each movement. So the first one we'll do is from ward off left into ward off right. So you've got hold the ball and transfer into ward off right. And you can stop on the sort of straight line. Ward off right continues into roll back. We'll just pause at that when we're square. So just looking at the normal transition first of all. So you've got forward, hold the ball, turn, step, into the posture, and into the bow stance. So we'll do that from some different angles. Ward off left, into ward off right. If I want to make a loop of a kind of couple of movements, after I've done ward off right, I'll just hold the ball, go back into ward off left, and then into ward off right. So from here, just take the ball with the right hand on top, turn, step back into ward off left, hold the ball, step ward off right. And you might run out of space, so you just have to adjust. So hold the ball and just continue ward off left, ward off right. I'll just show you that from the front. Just continue the same thing. So after ward off right, rather than continuing to roll back, I'll come back to this step into ward off left. And again, once you've got the choreography, you can work on more of the kind of external accuracy and internal qualities. Okay, so that's just continuous ward off left, ward off right. Continue with that for a moment. So I could also try that as a sort of mirror version of ward off right. I mean, some of these are like a little bit niche. You wouldn't necessarily do this too much, but if I wanted to, I could practice ward off right, then a sort of mirror version of ward off right. Hold the ball, ward off right. But you probably don't really need to do that particularly. It's just as a coordination exercise. So the mirror form of ward off right. Those can be helpful just to get you to understand the movement on both sides. So it's a bit like doing the hand form, left and right. So if I'm doing the hand form of ward off right, I can do that in a static position, but you can do it continuous stepping if you want. So in the hands, we've got holding the ball, then this hand floats up in front of the other hand. So it's like I'm holding a ball, a small ball here. I could just practice that as a hand practice. Left and right. So it'll help you get more accurate in the hands just to be able to do that on both sides. It's like a variation of cloud hands. Also just the sort of standing positions, joining the dots type thing. So after ward off left, be 70-30. Come forward to sort of 90-10. Back heel comes off as I hold the ball. And I'm turning to the left. Then I turn slightly to the right and I'm almost like 100-0 at that point. So I could lift that foot and step, still 100-0 roughly. Then I sit into the legs and the right hand starts to float up. So you got 50-50 like on the walk. The hands up. Then I turn to 70-30 and you're kind of releasing up slightly at that point. So those are just points of reference for if you were to practice it as frames or standing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And also we talked about Mr. Liu's exercises where we'll like loop round a movement forward and back. So if we were doing ward off right on a loop like Mr. Liu, it would be like this. So that's the back leg, 45 degrees, hold the ball, and then come into ward off right. Hold the ball and come back, doing a sort of mirror version. Hold the ball, come forward. And just remember the sort of mechanics of his movement, the quad, the tail, all that stuff. So you're trying to maintain that as you do the hand movement. So the arms are just looping left and right. The leg is forward stance, back stance to 45 degrees. So we're in ward off right. Then we do mirror version to the 45-degree angle on the back leg. Again, once you get the coordination, you just practice some other details like go through the walk movement or drop the tail, whatever. Suspend the head. And on that, you could then do the mirror version. So it'd be still ward off right shape, but we do it to the mirror. So it's an interesting exercise. It's training the whole body movement. And again, look for these kind of mechanics of it. Drop the tail, sit on the quad, open the back. You can also just pause and check the structure. Again, the stepping form here is like 90 degrees. So the ward off V shape. So we covered that last week, just thinking of like stepping at 90 degrees. But you could practice that just making that sort of ward off shape in a simplified sort of L shape or V shape. So getting used to this structure in the hands and that angle of step, then you can go to the other 90-degree angle. I'm just keeping the feet in the V at the moment. But it gives you a feeling of like that's a line of intention, or the intention of the posture this way. Horse forward to the side, ward off right, 90-degree step. And just make the shape and try aim for the wall or wherever it is you're aiming for in the room. The thing just to add to the end of that would be to turn the back foot. Again, you could do this as a simplified version. It's a bit more kind of horizontal focused as well, whereas in other practices we might be trying to sit and release up. Here, I could think more horizontally, just go that way. A bit like playing tennis or something, you just go hit the ball that way. Go straight in that direction, but make the structure in the body clear. Could also have that sort of larger frame idea, so you're stepping to quite a big posture maybe. Stretch out a little bit more. Because most of us are quite small in our stance, so you can make it a little bit bigger, a bit longer. It might take it away from the Chen Man Ching style, but it doesn't really matter, just as an exercise. The other sort of stepping variation is to walk forward for this type of stance, so you can just practice this direct line forward, left and right. So just do that. I can just turn the ball this way maybe for simplicity. So just like turning a globe, you just step into ward off right, turn it round. Just rotate around the ball. Or you could sort of hold the ball and float the hand up, so you can do it like the form. Again, these are single form practices, just getting you better at that one movement. And getting it to feel more natural, less restricted within the form sequence. So that was just stepping forward. And I can do it, slight variation where I bring the hand down, hold the ball, and then bring the hand up. Then the more sort of freestyle stepping is just to kind of almost like you're doing a standing posture, or like each one, you've got this shape. You can walk around a little bit and just play around with it. So it's kind of like holding the ball. And in ward off right, you kind of turn to the right so you can get this sort of circle horizontally. That might be another one to practice on the forward step as you turn beyond the center. So I'm practicing this turn of the waist. So looking at roll back from ward off right, we turn beyond the center line, come back, make this new shape, and turn to the left. And you could say that's the end of it just there. So it's just quite a small movement. Back and turn to roughly 45 degrees. And if we were just doing a simple loop of the regular form, after I've done that, I could just go back to ward off right, roll back, go back to ward off right. Just isolating that movement. It's almost like I've gone into the press, but we're just going back to ward off right, turn, change the hands, turn, come back to ward off right. So the right arm comes almost vertical, fingers up. Left arm, fingers towards your elbow, palm towards you. And you're turning to the left. Turn to the right, first of all, just kind of wind up and release. In terms of mirror form, I can do the mirror form on the same side stance. I could go like that and do it this way, or back to ward off right on the normal side to here. Then I do a sort of mirror version of ward off right and roll back on the other side. Useful for push hands to be able to turn left and right on both legs. And that would be another mini form, would be just stay on the back leg and turn left and right. So I'm just isolating that end movement of roll back here. So we can go through the ward off and roll back on left and right sides. Or I can just stay on the back leg and practice that turning. Another little detail is rolling this forearm. So as the body rolls to the left, this hand can turn slightly, forearm rolls slightly. So it can just turn with my body, but I can feel like there's a slight rotation of the forearm, as if the palm's turning towards me. It's just a slight connection on both sides. And I could even just do that, just practice that. Connect it to the body. And all of that, which we just did, can do in the mirror stance. So don't have to spend so long on it, but it's ward off right, mirror version, roll back, mirror version. Then you could do the sort of half mirror version So it's the mirror image, ward off right, roll back. The standard side, then the kind of split upper body mirror, then back to the original arrangement. Again, on that side, I can practice just the back stance, just the rolling left and right, or just one hand, the vertical hand. So if we're looking just at this, the shape of rollback, from ward off right, as you come back, you make this shape. So it's quite simple, we've covered that. So vertical roughly, and here, that's really it. So if you were doing it as a standing posture, you'd be on the back leg, turned slightly one way or the other, or in the center. And then the mirror version. And then the sort of split version, you could practice those just as positions. Again, you might just isolate the hands, so the flow of the hands. So you get this flow from ward off right to roll back, turn the body. Ward off right, roll back, turn. Ward off right, roll back, turn. So you've got the sort of winding up and releasing. Wind up, turn the other way. In terms of stepping, this roll back isn't really a stepping movement. You're already in the fixed stance, you're just shifting the weight. But you could do a stepping movement if you wanted. So a bit like maybe repulse monkey. I could walk backwards with roll back. Just to get that kind of feeling of going backwards and turning. Which looks a bit like in Tai Chi, there's this thing called Dalu, where you step and do kind of roll back. Dalu means big roll back. So it looks a bit like that. So stepping back. You need to practice the Dalu again sometime. Forget about that. So step back, turn. As I turn the body, I'll turn the front foot. So I'm just stepping back and then turning the foot. Step back, turn the foot. But connect the step and the turn to the body movements. If you're doing it sort of more freestyle, it reminds me of in Bagua, there's a movement called snake hands, which is like this kind of snaking hands thing. If you were doing rollback as a freestyle loop, it might end up like that. There's a few other aspects to it. So in the push hands, you've got this kind of arm bar where this hand might be hooked round. So it could be practicing that in the hands as well. The Peng hand, after you've done ward off, and this is receiving, and this is sort of barring. You can also practice that coming in. So you see in the Wong Tai Chi, they do this kind of thing. It looks a bit strange, but it's like letting this hand come in. So you see Lau King do that in his push hands. He does that quite a lot. But it's encouraging you to close onto him, so you lock your hand or lock your arm. So you can have that a sense of that as maintaining Peng, but you can also make sure it is able to yield in as well as this one rolls across. So you can practice that as a sort of freestyle exercise, or the kind of snake hands thing. We'll cover some of the Bagua. When Paul describes snake hands, he says, bring your head to the side, so you're kind of getting out the way of something. So yeah, you've got receiving, like the kind of Wong Tai Chi, rolling the arm. You've also got in the Wu style, there's this four directions, push hands, and the vertical forearm. So one hand's a bit like single whip, hooking the arm, and the other's. So it's creating those two directions. So we'll go like that. On the Wu style, 4 directions, forward, forward, back, back. So it's in receiving against like the 2 straight arms. Roll, roll, forward, forward. So it's good to practice that. So yeah, just getting the sense of playing with the movement, so you get the rolling arm, the hooking arm or receiving arm or catching arm, whatever it is. So there's a feeling potentially of like drawing the person forward. So it's not quite pulling, but like extending the person forward. So you're drawing them in. So it's drawing in and then rolling or locking. And that kind of leads into the next movement. So you probably want to put some together. So it's like the drawing in leads to the press. So you pull in and then push out or strike. So rolling and then pressing. So after you've done roll back, just looking at the standard form for press. So you're on the back leg, you've turned to the left, and then the arms move over to the left. So the vertical arm comes down to sort of horizontal, and then the horizontal arm swings out. So it's kind of out like a wing. So that's the first part of press, from here to here. And yeah, this hand's still facing you, this palm maybe facing down. It's different versions of it. You see it in different styles. Sometimes it's done like more like holding a ball and pressing, squeezing the ball. So yeah, just extend the arm out. It can either swing down or swing to the side. And then you can just go through that from press back to ward off right into roll back. So in continuous practice of press. When you bring the hand into press, you could just bring it directly straight line to the wrist. Or you can think of sort of folding it in, dropping the elbow, and then extending out, a bit like in the fourth loosening exercise when the hand folds in and then it extends out after. So that's just the left arm. The right arm doesn't do very much. It might just come slightly in and out. It's almost as if the right arm is fixed. And then the press, the squeezing goes there to join together. But it's also kind of moving. So it's not completely fixed. It floats in and out. Press is one of the hardest postures to teach because it's not very linear, it's quite fluid. And it's partly the timing of back through the center, back into the front leg. So you're getting the timing of this sort of swing press. At the same time as the upper body's soft, I'm still maybe thinking of loading into the legs to add power to the press. So it's not just leaning forward into the base. So the hands are sort of slightly different from the legs. It's as if the upper body is sort of empty and spacious, but the lower body is strong. So it's like hidden power. The power is hidden in the legs or in the center and not felt in the upper body until it's released. So when you touch the hand on the wrist, feel the feet on the ground like they're pressing lightly on the ground as well. So we go through roll back, press, and go from ward off, roll back. And of course you can do that on the mirror side. There's also the kind of half mirror version. So you're like on the awkward roll back. You could still do press there. It feels a bit weird, but you could explore that. I wouldn't spend too much time on that because partly the press feels like it's going to that back leg. So to do it to the front leg feels quite unnatural. Standing postures, it's a bit harder to define exactly, but one position might be just here. So this hand's in a kind of ward off. After the come down from vertical, it's like ward off, maybe at the solar plexus height, slightly out from the body. The other hand's out like a wing, stretched out. I think there's a photo of Chen Manqing in that sort of shape. So you see his arms out. So that's part of it. That's the far back corner. Then I could try and fold this in, touch on the wrist, and find the center in the legs. So find 50-50. At that point, you could think the hands touch at 50-50 and they just band out at 70-30. But it's not quite as mathematical as that, but you could think 50-50, touch, and then press just for the last inch. So we've gone from the rollback shape to this shape to the press via dropping the elbow, drop the elbow, and then press out. Also, when I reach 50-50 and the hands touch, I've got to the bottom of the spring or the bottom of the walk. So you feel both feet and then release out. Even if you feel yourself moving horizontally, you still have those points of reference. Same on the mirror side, you can practice that as a mirror form. So this fully back position, ward off and wing. The bottom of the walk, so this elbow drops, the hand comes in, touches on the wrist, and that's me fully loaded, and then releasing slightly. So you could think of the release in the Chen Man Ching form, the Huang form, you think of just going straight up. Chen Man Ching, you're sort of coming up the front of the walk slightly. So you're coming to 70-30. And there's more of a horizontal feeling, lighter feeling, but still got that swing, load and release. Chen Man Ching spoke about swing and return apparently as well. Swing and return. So press has that sort of swing and return quality, and probably most clearly in any of the form movements. The hands also move a little bit like the walk. So allow the back arm to quite extend out. When you see Ben Lowe does it, his arm looks kind of straight out almost. I haven't watched it for a while, but so you could practice that just with the hands, but it feels like it sort of needs the shift of the weight to get the feeling of the pressing, the swing and return type feeling. Doesn't quite happen here without that. But just to trace it out as an exercise. Just a hand movement. And the position of press is rough, like there's different versions. Some people do it on the arm. It could really be anywhere between the elbow and the hand, but in the form, you just do it maybe here with this part of the hand on the wrist, like as if it was covering your watch or something. And when you do the mirror version, it's the other way around. So if this is the inside hand, swaps around. Stepping, again, it's not a stepping movement in the form, but you could practice like the forward stepping. I could do the kind of swing and press. So the bow stance stepping, you've got this version where we change sides, left and right. You've also got the version where we kind of move forward. And you could do that left and right side. So it's also in the Bagua linear exercises, but you could add that into the Tai Chi. And also with the alternating one, you could do a little spring forward as well if you wanted, just to add some variations in. Ward off left and ward off right, you could potentially do it in those type of steps. I didn't mention that. And that's the kind of Peng quality, so it's like a spring, so it's going spring, spring the leg, spring the arm. It could potentially be that you're splitting or doing something else with those. Same with ward off right. It could be doing something else. And then now we're into press. So with press, we could practice this feeling of spring on both sides. You can also do that a bit slower. So a slower version of it would be step the back foot up, sit down, step forward, come into the stance and release. That's slightly different. So it's kind of slower version, which you can incorporate into push hands. So in push hands, it might be you're doing this movement in and then press. So it's less of the kind of spring forward in the back leg, more stealing space and dropping under, which happens in push hands. So sometimes called T-Fong, that one, T-Fong. So T-Fong is when you sort of create a wobble in the partner, or you sort of draw them in and out and take their balance. So there's a kind of wave feeling, and it could be the press that expresses out. So you're drawing in and then pressing out, draw in, press out. Or it can be just the spring forward, spring forward. Try that on both sides. So if we're doing the slower one, step the back foot up, drop under and press. Step up, drop, press. Or the spring forward is more like pushing from the back foot. You could combine that with rollback, perhaps. So the feeling of rollback and press, rollback, press. Ward off, rollback, press. I can do it more like the actual form, so just ward off, roll back, press, then change legs, mirror form, ward off, roll back, press, change legs, ward off, roll back, press. So if we're looking at the kind of each one type stuff, or that way of practicing, and we're just sort of practicing like standing postures or flapping the wings. So you've got the ward off left and right, roll back and press, or you've got up and down like the beginning of the form as well. So you can just play with those movements. But doing it in a sort of freestyle way, and you might do the order might change. So I might do that and then press or whatever, doesn't really matter. Or do 2 rollbacks. So in Bagua, there's an idea that you would move through things freestyle, so you could try and incorporate some of that into the Tai Chi, so you feel free just to add in a movement, whatever the movement is, out of the ones that we've done. Or maybe ones we haven't done as well. So it can be sort of Bagua type things. So you're just getting to be able to play around. And you can occasionally move faster. So like the press can be more like a spring, or the up and down, or the rollback can be more of a break of the arm. But the idea of like having short power for, say, rollback. So you practice it with something like that. It's hard in this room, it's not very big. Don't want to smash the camera, but I'm turning the center quickly and starting to shake this pole. It's not really a pole. So the idea of that is that could be what powers some of these faster movements. Rollback would be that one. The locking, or the joint lock, could be done through that turn of the center. If you want to try that, you can get one of those, if you've got some way of getting it back to your house, from B&Q. Those thin canes are quite useful just to get that shaking power. It's not in this style of Tai Chi, but it's in other styles. So it's about short power. And short power coming from your center. And I'm just learning that. I'm not in any way an expert of it. So that would be one place that it's applied, as in rollback, to break the arm. Not that you're probably wanting to do that, but just so you know. So in Tai Chi, we'll talk about long jin and short jin, or short power, long power. So we've done Peng, Lu, Ji, An. So in again, regular form, after press, you have An. So it's got, the way I teach it is kind of 2 parts to it. The first part is downward, palms facing downward. Then the palms lightly push out at the end. Some people would just do that part, so they don't really have the downward part. Chen Man Ching, you see it very briefly, but there's other styles that will do it more definitely there and then out. It's already in the beginning form here. This part is called, you would call An. So it's down. So it's defined as press down sometimes. One teacher calls it suppress. So it's suppressing and pressing, which means that you're controlling the person downward. So the beginning of after press, you've got a moment of that as you sit into the center and you come down the side of the walk, and you're sort of dropping the elbows and moving towards the hands. Then release out, and the push is just touching with the fingertips. It's not pushing with the arms. So you keep the arms very passive or very light, almost empty. And all of the work is in the legs and the body. So that's press to push with via this slightly downward direction. So in Mr. Leo's exercises, it's this vertical circle movement. The way Brett does it, it's like pulling round and extending out. So his downward part is on the way back. It sort of starts to go down and under and then out. In the form that's not quite expressed, it's just sort of subtly there, but that helps you train it by making it more clear. It's also in the Shibashi Qigong, the undulating waves movement. Again, it's a simple movement, but not that easy. Press and then do the mirror form. So you go from the press into the push. And those variations. So you've got the vertical circle or just the standard form. And just to get clear on the position of the arms, that is not push in Tai Chi. This is for the Chen Man Cheng style anyway. You maintain the beautiful lady's hand or the straight wrist, elbows down, not elbows up and wrists bent, opposite of that. And the power is in the legs and the back or the center, not in the arms. So the hand form is really simple. It's just separate, palms face down, drop the elbows, fingers touch forward. So there can be a slight movement out of the arms, but not to straighten. Huang Shengshan said between a fist distance and a hand span from your elbow to ribs. So it can come quite close to the ribs and then out the width of a hand. It's just an idea. So there's that movement on the push. And at the beginning on the an, you can have the palms down. The hands can be up, or you could lower them a bit to get the sort of feeling of down. But if the hands are up, you can still have the feeling of down, drop the elbows, push out. The same thing that we did on the stepping forms, you could do with the push. So you can just do a simple forward sort of walking exercise, Tai Chi walking left and right. You could just press and push. Then I could maybe go press and push on each side. Push on its own is quite minimal. It would be just like that. So you're not really changing the hands. You could also do the sort of forward step thing. That gives you also the feeling that the hands are not doing the push. So imagine even just the elbows were locked on the body and it all comes out of the legs. So there's no arm power. That can be a useful thing to try. So that it's a bit like in the beginning of the form where you've got the sort of T-Rex arms. So you try and just use the leg initially, pushing forward, so pushing out the leg. You can do that left and right. Or there's this other one which is a bit more subtle. So you step up, sink down, draw into this center, and then release slightly. So just at the very end, the arms can come out. So step up, down, center, and release. So that's basically like in push hands, you would do that. So you'd step in close, sink under, load up the legs and push out. Step in close, legs, center, out. Once you get the mechanics of these, the push hand stuff, the basic stuff is quite simple. Another exercise probably for the push and the press is just to kind of load the legs, release up, so going up and down, in and out, this type of thing. But in the form, we're sort of moving forward as that happens through the vertical circle. So yeah, say it's forward stepping variations, one leg, swapping legs. You can have the spring out or the kind of stealing step in to close in and push out. In terms of the sort of free form practice, when we're doing that type of thing, that really that's an, that downward direction is an. So you can practice that feeling of down. The pushing part again is just the, it's almost like the holding the ball shape. So if we think of this kind of Peng in the arms, or in Bagua you've got this mother palm. So that's a kind of pushing position, less down, more forward, pushing forward. And with the Yichuan stuff, you can practice like counter moves horizontally, vertically. And play around again. So you've got all the different combinations that we've covered so far. And you might just go through the form sequence. So you've got beginning, which has opening, closing, has up and down. You've got holding this ball. I didn't say this before, but that's like in Bagua, the can is called, this strike is a bit like holding the ball from the first palm change. So that's hold the ball. Ward off left is a bit like cloud hands or shield and spear in each one. Similarly, ward off right is like that as well, higher. Roll back could be like the snake hands or any of these combinations. Arm breaking, short power, all that stuff. It could be the receiving on the body to draw in, roll back, press. Paul talks about car crash. So like in Bagua, we were working on that. You pull in and the person's drawn into the hand. So press might be a bit like that. It's like you're drawing them in to a collision. And then the push is up and down, it's forward and back. Try left and right. Try stepping in different ways. Just think of the postures so far. What are they? Another one application of ward off right is like a wrapping around the head to strike the face. So that's like a wrap around the neck. So just playing around with it. And I'm not officially each one person. I've not really learned any of it properly, but it's just to get the feeling of it. And you can see how that relates to just standing meditation, these postures. So if you were doing it like a sort of Jamjong practice, all of the positions, like the hand form, can be just sort of standing postures with little movements. Like the mother palms. Just going through the sequence, but see if it feels a bit more alive, having explored. As if you're doing it like a free form that just happens to have this sequence. Press and then push. Then coming back as if we're going in single whip, but just finish.